good. You guys look good. Awesome. And we all have good hair days, man. We're starting to, 2 weeks without a haircut, I just, yeah. I just go in the room, man.
That's nice. I feel like I got that Ron Burgundy going.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about, I had to shave, once every 3 days now. And, just when I had to see people. And, but other than that, it's good. So where are you guys at?
We're in Michigan.
You're in Michigan. Okay.
Yep. In northern Michigan. So while there's not very many cases of the pandemic near us, we still definitely are taking every precaution because we are in a hot state.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. We're starting to see more and more in our state. And we have so many elderly people in Florida that's been a big concern. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So I've been pushing for online academies and webinars for everything for a year, for about 10 years now, talking to people and saying, listen, we got to move to webinars and we got to move to online and stop putting so much emphasis on rooms and booking hotels. And now everybody's going to have to do it. So you guys are way ahead of the curve there on that, since that's what you do. Talk to me, Sarah. I mean, it's Sarah and Josh, right?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
All right. So we can introduce you guys to the Pest Geek audience. Sarah, let's start with you ladies first. And tell me about you and about your history and what the heck do you do there?
Well, my role at this company is to put the training together and to oversee all of the training across the 27 states that we currently work with. My education is in horticulture from Michigan State University, and this position just kind of fell into my lap. When I started at this company, Pesticide, this pesticide school was just kind of a blip on the radar. It was an idea that hadn't fully formed, and it's been 3 years now, going on 4, and we've taken it from this kind of idea, how do we do this, into a school and industry that now has over 50 available courses across 27 different states, and we're still growing.
Amazing.
One of the things that Josh and I are supposed to do today is start filming another course for wood destroying pests. So we're constantly growing, and it's been a ride.
So let's talk about, because I love concepts. We're starting our academy after I've been talking about it for 5 years, and the podcast was something that I had thought about for like 3 or 4 years. I just didn't have the time. So we started the podcast like 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And starting an academy is something I've been talking to everyone about, and then nobody's doing it because everybody still wants to have the conferences and the local meetings. And there's a huge market for what you and I are wanting to do, what you've already done. But when did you have this idea to actually do this?
Well, that's a better question for Josh, actually. He's the brainchild of the company. He thinks of it, and then I have to find a way to do it.
Okay. All right, so talk to me, Josh, about your little your history there, and where did you come from in all this?
Certainly, we come from an education background in general. Construction education is early on in the 90s. That's when we started in 1999, and we are one of the leading providers of construction education and have been for close to 20 years. And about 2016, 2017, Mississippi State University and Gene Merkel, who is their head of the extension program at Mississippi State University, excellent individual. He had the foresight to see what we were doing in construction and building online training for trades people. And that's a whole different realm than really building online education for academics. It's a different realm than building online education for service industries that are used to online. Okay. And so we come at it from a usability standpoint, a production standpoint, where we're building programs for the workforce. And they saw what we had been doing in construction, and Gene called and we talked, and he asked if we would consider working with Mississippi State University in building an online education program for the agricultural world and the pesticide and pesticide applicator world. And doing a quick feasibility analysis of what the market needs were, what the current standing of online education was, and what the demand was, to me, it was very quickly, it was almost a no-brainer. Right. Where we looked at what was available, we looked at the subject matter experts and the foundation for education, and it's there. I mean, it's amazing.
Course. Yes. No,
said, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish your story. Go ahead. I'm more interested in you.
We said, how do we take what is currently done in a classroom, and this is generally how we look at everything. How do we take what's currently done in the classroom and build an online program that gives the positives of the classroom and also builds in the power of an online setting? And so all the tools that go into, the classroom, which is users being able to talk to each other, people going to having that camaraderie effect. And we said, how do we build the software in order to make that happen online? And we actually do that as well, along with producing the online training for this program. For these programs, we produce all of the software that is used. So we've got a full development staff that says, if someone who is a workforce-oriented individual, whether they have a doctorate degree or whether they really got through high school and started into the workforce, they need to be able to use these programs to their fullest without spending time thinking about how does the program work. It just needs to be intuitive. Right. And so building in the forums within the courses, building in the interactivity and the really video, just like we're doing this podcast today. Right. It is content that is invaluable. You can't recreate it, or you can recreate it, but it's really necessary in order to build an audience that wants to learn, an audience where it's easy and they're not frustrated with the technology, but instead they're able to focus on the content. And that's where we come at every production program.
Yeah. So for speaking in tech terms, the UX and the UI, the user experience is what I've always said is lacking with all of the online training, because all of the online training that has been available by different providers is more focused on compliance than the actual learning experience, because it's about getting your CEUs, just getting that, serving your time. Like if you're, and getting from a compliance perspective, not from an entertainment value or user experience perspective. And that's always been my frustration with online courses, that most people say the biggest gripe that I talk in, and I'm in probably about 30 groups. And when I look at what online training, the biggest gripe people have is that it's about as exciting as watching paint dry and water boil.
Right.
That's the biggest problem that people have. By the way, I got so excited about talking to you guys about what you do that I forgot what the heck is the name of your company.
Certified Training Institute.
Certified Training Institute. Okay, because we were like, I usually do an introduction and all this, but we were dealing with the technical difficulties, and then I want to talk to people, and I just totally forget about talking points and all this. I just want to have a conversation with you guys. So
totally fine.
So yeah, so I love it. So you guys are in, you said 27 states that you now do CEU compliant courses for pest control industry. Okay. By the way, what other, because if you did construction, what else do you guys teach besides just pest control?
We provide training in construction, architecture, engineering, real estate, pest control and agriculture, as well as we have a really awesome program for plumbing as well. We look at industries that are workforce oriented, and we see that they're underserved. A lot of times they're underserved. And what it is there's so many, especially in the workforce world, there are a lot of people that do these things. There are a lot of people who live and breathe these things. They're subject matter experts, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they all want to be involved in the learning and the training and teaching. And so we try and bridge that gap where we make instructing courses really, really easy. We make it fun. We make it something that's not to be scared of.
Right.
And we bridge that gap from being a subject matter expert who is excellent in your field at what you do,
Right.
and then providing the tools and all of the compliance items that you were talking about. We view those as that's our world. And so
Right.
we need to build the systems, we need to build the programs so that we can handle compliance. And all that the person has to do on the other end is learn. They don't have to think about compliance. They don't have to think
Right.
about how the system works. All they have to do is focus on the content and, be able to watch and interact. Because
Right.
when they're focused on compliance, when they're focused on, I used to call it, and this is if you took online training in the 90s and early 2000s, I call it click to next training.
Right.
You're just banging through it, next, read, answer a quiz. And we try to build training that is interactive and that it has someone on screen most of the time, at least, if not all of the time, that's delivering a lecture in the same way that you'd have a lecture delivered in a classroom.
Right.
And that is, it's a challenge. We are learning all the time. We use many, many different production techniques in order to get that, accomplish that task.
Right.
But it has been an amazing ride. And we've got, through Certified Training Institute, we've got about 130,000 online students.
Wow. That is impressive. So yeah, I've been, I sit on, and the reason I'm passionate about what you guys do and this is because I sit on the advisory council for our extension service. And I've been on that council for now. And I've been the only pest control company ever invited to be on that council because
Really?
I'm passionate about training. I'm passionate about education. But I'm also a business owner, and I understand that you have to be having your techs be productive. You can't send everybody to all-day training. Everybody wants this mentality in a classroom because they feel like that's the only way people can learn, because that's the way educators have a different way of looking at things. I'm a business owner and a marketer. I'm not an educator, although I'm passionate about education. So that's the reason why I sync with the extension service, because I see what it is that they want to accomplish, but they don't have the direction or the vision. So I usually will provide, I'm a goad, I just prick people into action to do things. And this is one of the challenges that I've been saying, that the majority of people are not interested in online training because their experience has been so bad. But then those that are educators that want people to attend, but when I sit around in the meetings and I look at the reality, and we deal with county people, people from actually employers, and he says, they're complaining that people don't go to training anymore, and nobody's going to training. And then I say, and I sat around the meeting and I asked, okay, how many people are you going to send to the training? He says, well, we can't send them. I says, we don't have the budget. So I said, okay, so if we made the classes for free, could you send them? No, because we can't give them time off because we're understaffed. And as the guy running a 1 to 3 person company, I can't send my guys to constant training all day, but I can say, hey, when you're home at night, why don't you take a 1-hour course, maybe every day, and then you can get that training. The problem is it's not available in a lot of cases. And a lot of the training that we actually need, which is practical, not dosage training, not how to spray this chemical, the anecdotal compliant training. A lot of the training that's needed is how to actually learn to solve these problems in a way that's in the field, but they feel that they need to be in a classroom to teach it. And a lot of people don't have the time. So there's this stress between the educators saying we can't fill a classroom because nobody wants to come, and the students saying even if it was free we can't come because a day of production is $600 to $1,200 that it costs us to send a guy to training, plus the lost production that they still have to make up. That's been the struggle. And the other point, the reason why most pest control guys, when I ask the hard questions, when I put them up against the wall, and I asked, why do you really want to go to training? It's mostly the owners, because they want the interaction, they want the networking.
Yes.
So small business owners want the networking. The technicians need the training, but they can't send them. That's been, so I don't know which one of you wants to address a lot of those issues, especially from the business or marketing side, but go ahead.
It's twofold. I think there's parts for both of us, because we have to work as a team.
Okay.
So the first section that you mentioned was that the slight scaredness to do online training from a state lead agency standpoint in the approval process, because the product in the past was we never talked bad about anything, but it was subpar. There are many subpar programs that were out there. And so the first hurdle that we had to take on was, how do we produce this program, or these programs, in a way that fulfills those educational needs? And we had to put it in front of the dean of universities, the deans of extension programs, and build the software to meet those needs, especially the networking needs as well. And we did that, and that is one of the reasons we've been so accepted very quickly, is that when a state lead agency, who in the past said, no, we're not looking for online training because we don't believe it's quality, all we have to say is, we totally agree with what you've seen in the past. And that's why this program is so important to be created and to be approved. And if you just wouldn't mind reviewing it, we'd love your feedback. And two, we think you're going to be very, very impressed with the leaps and bounds this has made. And Sarah has been instrumental in creating those relationships and getting the programs in front of the people that they need to get in front of, in order, once they see it, once they see what's been created and the difference in training quality, they come back and go, I did not know that this was possible. I did not know that this was a thing. Absolutely, we can accept this program. And at that point, you're right, it is on the business owner, it is on the marketer to then get it in front of the students. Because if the state lead agency has that feeling, so many of the applicators, so many of the people in the field also very much, have that feeling of, I didn't trust online in 2008. I didn't trust online in 2009. Well, this is a whole different ball game these days. Right. And it's really because of the work that Sarah's doing. And then Sarah, I'll let you touch on the second part of that question.
Refresh my memory. The second part of the question was,
yeah, how do we get in the mentality between the business owner, the educator, and then you have the technician in the middle? All these people are having different positions of why they can't attend training. The reason that owners like to go to expos and conferences and training is purely for the networking. The educator wants somebody to understand all the compliance part. In the middle, we have the business portion that says, I'm a business owner, I got to make a profit. Compliance is really not on the top of my scale. It's something that we have to, nobody likes to be told what they have to do from a compliance perspective. We realize we have to do it, but it isn't really high. I'd rather go to a conference that teaches me how to make more money and be a better pest control technician, not necessarily how do I comply. And there's two different mentalities there that we have to have help these guys reconcile this.
Right. So that's really where I come in. And that is, I take all of the training and I look at the compliance requirements and I put that all together. Right. So the networking, online networking is more difficult than it is at a conference. There's just no way to get around that. One of the things that we've tried to help with is to put a forum at the end of all of our courses where people can comment something about that they saw in the course, or they had a question. The course moderator is usually the author, so Josh or I will reply to those. We have students sometimes having conversations between each other, but the networking is a challenge of online platform. The compliance, however, is a mandate from the state, your state lead agency. You have to do this. There is no way to not have to do that. Right. But we try to make it as informational, entertaining as we can. One of the providers that we have, or presenters that we have, you're very familiar with Stephen Van Tassel.
Of course.
Amazing.
He's amazing. He's an excellent presenter. His classes are always really well received, and he's fun to watch. And so that's where we try to make the information, I mean, some of this information, how to do the math to calculate how many gallons of termiticide you need for this length of foundation. I mean, there's not a whole lot of ways that you can make that entertaining, but you don't have to belabor the point either.
Yeah.
So we move through that efficiently and quickly. We don't belabor the point. We get on to more interesting topics and we try to make it entertaining. The tricky part about filming those courses is that you throw a joke in there every once in a while, and of course when you're in a room full of people, people laugh. Well, when you're in front of a camera, nobody laughs, and you always wonder,
you gotta run that laugh track.
How that went over.
Yes. Sarah said something in there. She said the forum is at the end, and that was she's just one little caveat. The forum is during the lesson. When she meant at the end, she means at the bottom of the page.
Oh,
so as
right.
the lessons are running, as you're viewing a video or watching something on the screen, the forum is always available. And during the actual presentation, we do trying to ask that instructor, whoever it is, that subject matter expert, to say, hey, by the way, down below me, literally right down below me, there's a constant conversation. Keep this conversation running. I want to know about experiences that you're having. If you're doing an application, like Sarah was just mentioning, subterranean termites, and you're having to drill through a foundation in order to do a sub application, tell us about your experience. What drill worked the best? What products are you using? That building that interactivity, becoming a creator of, that student who's sitting in a class or sitting and watching a training program or working with a training program, for them to be able to ask a question during the lesson, as the lesson's going, just like they can raise their hand and ask a question. And then someone, whether it's the instructor who, boom, that's a pop-up on their phone, wherever they happen to be out in the field. Oh, they got a question in class. Boom, they can throw an answer up. Or it's another student who's taking that course and goes, hey, take a look at this picture I just threw up there. This is an application that I did. It changes the whole realm from everyone being a student, every student being a user, to students, I should say, applicators being contributors. And that's something I think you're touching on with the networking. Networking in general is that as more students, as more applicators take these trainings, not only is the conversation minute by minute able to happen right now, but also that applicator is able to look at every past conversation that's happened during that lesson, within the lesson,
right, and
go, what questions were asked? So many times, and this is a big hurdle for educators in the classroom and online. Applicators, workforce-oriented individuals, some of them ready to ask a question. They'll come right out with it. They don't mind right. Asking 10 questions in a day. But there's lots of other folks who are not comfortable asking a question. And they really rely on being in a classroom with 10, 12, 20, whatever other people, hoping that that person, the next person next to them, will ask the question. And that they want that question asked, but they're a little bit maybe shy, and or they're just not outspoken. And what that tool does, having a forum within every lesson, allows every question that's ever asked to be viewed, understood at the student level. And they don't have to be sitting at their home. They don't have to be sitting in their office, or they can be doing this in the field. If let's say they're doing an application and they're working sorghum in the South, and they've got a significant infestation, and they want to pull up, hey, quickly, I want to look at how do I measure the number of beetles that I'm finding through my sweep. How do I do the sweep correctly in order to find, do I need to apply, or is the threshold not quite there yet? They can quickly, with their phone, boom, pull that lesson up, jump in the truck, and in 15 minutes have watched a section on how to judge thresholds. And then say in the forum, hey, this is what I'm dealing with right now. not only did they complete that, that training, they got that 15 minutes of training recorded. They're watching the video, they're actually taking it, but also they were able to ask the question while they're in the field on their phone. Just like we're at least one of us I know is doing this on their smartphone. All of the training, everything that we produce is always available via any smart device. And
any
so
internet-enabled device can access the training.
Right, can
Amazing.
access and use it. And that makes it so that they do have a little bit of that networking, a little bit of that students asking questions, a little bit of that camaraderie. Camaraderie is a huge factor. I mean, you're a business owner, keeping your staff motivated to do the best possible work, keeping them moving forward and feeling like they're making a difference and they're actually making change. Hugely powerful for enabling a workforce to get things done. And that's, part of the reason that we build these tools. And when we have suggestions to build other tools, like I said, the full development staff on hand, multiple developers here in the office through the glass windows and whatnot. It's massive. We do not outsource any of our software development, which we, in the past 10 years ago, it was kind of a must. These days, as of five or so years ago, we said, no, in order to get that experience that an applicator needs, that a workforce individual needs, they need to understand how we work as American workforce. How do we work? How do we understand? And that's how we have to build the software.
Gotcha. So everything is on your system is vertical integration. You control the process from beginning to end.
Absolutely.
Sweet. Yeah, one of the big things, like I'm a visual and an audio learner. Like I can go to a conference and listen and remember everything that was said. Where I don't have, I'm actually self-taught. I got my horticultural certification from Miami-Dade because they offered a course, and I took it, and I got my certification back in 2009. But thank you. But I'm never been one that I'm self-taught and I'm self-motivated. I'm a self-starter. So I spend most of my time, reading entomological journals and, reading the stuff that bores the snot out of people.
Some people.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. So I will sit there and I'm on Google Scholar, and that's the stuff that I read. I don't worry because 90% of the stuff that comes on. But I'm that kind of guy. I mean, I have a very, like, people tell me I have to go to a classroom to learn. Some people need that, and some people are visual learners, and some people are kinesthetics, and how do you in this training? How have you dealt with those kind of learners to deal with all this? Because it's a reality. I mean, my wife's like, she can only really learn in a classroom. She has a very difficult time learning on her own in front of a computer. I do self-study, and I will dig in because I'm just that kid that just keeps asking why and annoys the snot out of everybody. And that's just me because I'm just that inquisitive. So I don't have a problem learning. But how do you deal with this in those aspects of the traditional learner, or what are you seeing going forward also with millennials that we're seeing?
Multi-format content.
Okay.
And Sarah can talk a bit about multi-format content, but you have to provide the content in a way. You're right. There are at least 3, if not an umpteen number of ways people learn.
Right.
And one format is not going to suit everybody's needs.
Right.
Some people are going to be able to watch a video. And so Sarah can talk about the production of the multi-formats that we use. We do not just provide one way.
Okay.
No, the video is really just what we find is the most popular aspect of our training, or the facet. But in addition, and it's, when we say video, it's not like this Zoom meeting where it's just me or Josh or you on the screen. We actually have a PowerPoint presentation that's running simultaneously behind the presenter. So the presenter is over off to the corner of the screen like this, and all the rest of this information here is relevant to the conversation, what's being talked about, bullet points, pictures, occasionally a little animation that will be going on behind that. But even for people who don't really like to watch a video or type thing or listen to it, there is text down below the video box in that lesson that can be scrolled through and read through at your leisure, after you've watched the video, before you watch the video, referenced after you've taken it. All of that information, all of that essential information is down there in a written format also, so that people who maybe didn't pick it up when they were listening to the video or got distracted with what was going on elsewhere in the room can go back through and scroll down and reread that section. What were they talking? Oh, that's what I was. Okay. And it's a great tool to, especially when if you're studying to take an exam or to add a certification to your existing credentials. Having those tools to both watch and then read, and then go back and watch and read again if you need to, that can be a really great study tool to help really solidify the information that you need to be able to reference when you're taking your exam.
And that text is not just text, like you'd read in a novel. It is text that's built from the educator point of view. It's built just like a very nice, colorful textbook. So, it's built out where, it's all colored titles and broken into smaller chunks and lots of pictures, just like when you open up a high-end book, a fine published multicolored book. That's how that text is built out. And if they would rather, there's also audio learners. I know a lot of folks. I personally am an audio learner.
Right.
And so I love to throw on a set of headphones and close my eyes and envision everything that's being discussed. And we really work to make the lessons, every lesson that's being taught, whether it's a narration or a video, conversational. That's something that's hugely lost in online training. It's picked up here, you and I, conversational, but in the vast majority of online training, this a lot of times loses the conversational aspect. It loses that discussion point, and where it's not just laying out fact for the student, because so many people, maybe like your wife, don't learn in an online environment that is so cold and hard, fact-based. Instead, they need a conversation. They need to put context to it, and that's the gap that they lose a lot of times in online training, but that we're building into this online training, is that when a subject matter expert comes in, when a presenter is on screen, we very much, before they ever present on camera, we have a walkthrough where we work together to say what works in a conversational point of view. You want to deliver this in the very same way that you deliver in the classroom. You want to talk about it with using anecdotes, use stories, and then when you have questions, most of the time, the training that's being taught, this is not the first time it's being taught. This has been taught many times in the classroom. And so when they get to a certain topic that they know they generally get a few questions on, stop, have a conversation about it, ask those questions, or oftentimes we'll have a few students actually in the studio. We've got a green screen, soundproof, beautiful studio, and we'll have students sit in that class, and so that the presenter, who's normally used to teaching in a classroom, is able to interact with the student base while they're teaching this online class.
Brilliant.
Those students are able to, raise their hand, ask a question on the microphone, and then that instructor goes, you know what? You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Let's go a little bit deeper into why a pump, this type of pump, might break down more quickly if you're using a wettable powder solution versus this pump over here. And this is what I've dealt with in the past. That little thing that I just covered gets lost so often in an online format. And we have to work as a workforce training, company to build that into online and to use those tools and use that stuff that we see in a classroom. Those are the aspects that really hook into a student who's not used to learning online or didn't do great with a format where they have to just read a page of facts, answer a quiz, read a page of facts, answer a quiz. That doesn't work for me. And if it doesn't work for me and it doesn't work for our student base, then we're not going to produce that type of thing.
Got it. Yeah, no, that's been, the death by PowerPoint is also one that I try to, when I present, I usually try to keep like 3 points on a page, because people put like 15 points and then expect you to memorize that entire page. And people who do PowerPoints, like, in 12-point font, a whole article. So yeah, so it's important that, one of the things that I try to teach people as far as presenting is they know how to teach material, but when it comes to putting even seasoned educators, the amount of material they put on a PowerPoint screen to try for the student to memorize is just, because they know it. They forget that they were once sitting in that classroom, they didn't know anything.
Well,
that's been a big thing with dealing with educators. Yeah, a big hurdle with educators is trying to get them when they're trying to create, because I'm working with a couple of local educators here trying to get, I'm more about goading people into doing what they should be doing than to continue with the status quo. So I'm trying to get a bunch of these extension guys to record their classes and put them on YouTube and just, I believe in content marketing and just we're producing content on a daily basis here, and we're putting it out to get people to know what it is that we're actually about. Because we still, I've been on this podcast now for 5 years and nobody knows who the heck I am. That's a reality. In the grand scheme of things, nobody knows who the heck I am. I'm really a day trader of attention. I have to be. And I think as educators now, and everybody's going to feel it now with this coronavirus thing, when you were used to doing 200 conferences a year and now you're down to nothing and you're not putting out the content. And so, how are you dealing with the marketing part, and how do you see that? Because I recognize your material, and it comes up in a lot of the search terms that I look for, but I never actually saw you because I didn't see any videos or anything like that. What are you doing as far as marketing and all that? Or is it just through the extension, the state base, things like that, so people can find you?
Broad mix. We have a broad mix of marketing. We do have a full marketing staff. It is something that is a massive mountain. And as you know, I'm sure in the online world specifically, it is new, now, next. There is never I did such a great video and I put it out there and it's going to work for me great for the next 10 years. It is not. No. It is, you have to be constantly bringing new items to the table. And so Sarah does an amazing job of working with the state lead agencies, working with the people to get it in front of them. Yes, get it approved. Make sure that our systems for once a student completes a training, that it's automatically, we got a big reporting department that reports everything to every state. That is multiple full-time positions, because whenever a student completes an hour, that's got to be reported. That has, there's follow through there.
Right.
Marketing is another complete department where we have 3 full-time staff members dedicated 100% to marketing and taking the training that Sarah produces with the subject matter experts and breaking down little chunks and getting it out there in social media and getting it out there on, yes, some YouTube. And to a degree, it's just how much can you produce, and not, I need to produce 5 hours of marketing today or a huge mountain of marketing and push it today. It's, you have to have, just like you said, 5 years, a constant stream. And what we're finding is that when one applicator takes our training programs, the next year they have 5 friends who take that training program. And the next year they have 5 more friends. And so within 2 years, that's a 2,500% growth. And it will take years. There is no doubt about it. Right. And we're really working so that we work with the current brick and mortar institutions that are in charge of creating and delivering. We are not looking to take that market. We're looking to provide the tools so that they can. That's why Sarah brings in, and she's constantly in contact, and I'm sure, get ready, Franklin, because I'm sure that we'll approach you as well.
You guys want to tank your system, don't you?
Yeah, no.
He's already used to working in front of a camera. He's already got subject matter put together.
Yeah, right.
So we're looking for the extension agents who are teaching. We want to work with them. We want to work with the educators at the universities, and that's where the heart of this comes from. Is just us creating a service line, us creating a program and a system that works excellent and fulfills the needs of a ton of applicators at the same time as fulfills the needs of the educators who are currently doing this, because that's what's pushing this whole thing forward. APSI, we are very involved in APSI, and we try and lend every single time we can lend a tool or we can help in any way from a production and that online bridge of the gap point of view. We do, whether it's for the business or whether it's just because this industry needs to move forward.
Just so people know, what the heck is APSI?
Oh, APSI, the American Association of Pesticide Safety Educators. APSI.
I did not know that existed.
It is a very, very powerful, I don't know, I'm not going to overplay it, but a powerful organization where all of the universities, the state universities, land-grant state universities, have extension programs that are members of APSI, and it's the way generally it's each year. I don't know how this year is going to work. We'll see. Where everyone from the state land-grant university world comes together with the state lead agency world, and they come together to decide on what is happening in the pesticide safety education realm. And they work with the EPA, they work with, all of those entities are generally there. And we are one of the I think we actually are the only online educator who is involved and taking a very, very proactive standpoint and working with those universities to produce this education.
Got it. Sweet. No, that is amazing. One of the things that I'm looking at is I'm looking at the future. I'm looking at iGeners, the next generation. I mean, most people that start in pest control start between the ages, or used to start between the ages of 18 to 25. That's the 50% of people that get into pest control. All my numbers tell me that. But with this next generation, we're looking at them getting into the workforce later, and they're non-traditional learners. And I'm looking at how are we going to impact the high schools to start putting those seeds of alternate careers that they don't even know about, like entomology and pest control. And seems to be a shift with iGeners to a lot of what you teach, which is plumbing, the traditional trade jobs, because they don't want to go and get $150,000, debt for a degree that's not gonna, in classical, I guess, music, when they're not going to be able to use it for much. And a lot of this so the positioning and looking forward, and I've been talking about this now for 5-6 years, and a lot of guys don't seem to get it, that the classes are going to shrink, the online classes are going to increase. And what do you see in that? And do you agree with me, or what is it that you guys are seeing with that, for that future? And how do we start marketing, like, instead of being on Facebook, being on TikTok for this group of kids that are not going to be on Facebook, because that's for old people, and Instagram. What are you guys seeing in that, and what are you guys experiencing with that mentality, and how are you guys dealing with that in your marketplace?
I feel like I'm talking too much, Sarah, but I can.
No, go ahead, because my sphere in this company is really, it's a niche. It's the training, it's the working with the state lead agencies. Now we have a very extensive library of online resources. So I feel like we've done a good job positioning ourselves to be available, to have a product ready for these people who are getting into this pest control business. And this, aside from the continuing education, which is the mandated part of maintaining your company, we have a fairly extensive library on these exam preps. It's, you have to go pass a test before you can be a certified applicator.
Right.
Well, we have a prep course for the core standards, which every applicator needs to take. We have a prep course for people who want to get into turf management. We have a prep course for ornamental management. We're working on a prep course for specifically wood destroying, but we have a prep course for general structural pest control. So we see that need and that demand for that training to become these, to get into these alternate careers, and we're putting it in place. And based on the growth of our company, it's more in demand every year. Every month we have more people who come to us and say, hey, I want to do this. How do I get started? Well, the first thing you need to do is take these 3 classes and then take an exam. So it's coming. There are more.
We do come from a grassroots perspective, certainly. The point that you were making about the younger generation, it is to a degree about being cool. There's a little bit of that. Yeah, you mentioned TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. And yeah, you're right. Facebook is, continuing to be a tool we use, but it is slightly for the older generation, it seems, and Instagram for the the mid-range. And then yes, TikTok is so young that even I am just exploring it with my 4- and 6-year-old. The marketing team in general, we would not be where we are as a company without being able to entice via excellent marketing. And what that is bringing in folks who aren't necessarily subject matter experts in any particular trade, but instead they come from an art background. They come from a marketing and artistry and design background. And actually what we've done with that, the progress that we've made in building cool ads, it's not just ads, it's the wrong term, but in
right.
Cool content that a young person can get a hold of and go, oh, hold on, I never actually thought about, that's a really good job. I could actually do that as a career.
Right.
And being able to put that in front of mom and dad in the same sense that they can put in front of them going to college for this or that, whatever you kind of mentioned there, and get that pride factor from their parents, from their peer group, where they're doing a proactive, productive thing moving forward, whether that's going to be a pesticide applicator, whether that's starting the apprenticeship program for a journeyman plumber's license, or journeyman contractor license, journeyman electrician license,
right.
All those things. It is absolutely a constant battle in solidifying the legitimacy of entering the trades. And so the only way that we can do that, you can't do that by being always about the old school and just you have to do it. Instead, you've got to create content that is engaging and that can engage that younger audience. And the things that we learn in that engaging marketing, advertising, art world, we build them into the courses. That's what ends up happening is we'll do a really cool product, a really cool production for a piece of marketing content, and then we'll go, you know what, hold on. Actually, that could get used in a class. Like that technology that we use for using drones to sweep over field row crops, or that, something like that. We should be using that in the class. And then we build in what works into that classroom content. We are not just using a studio only and producing lecture style training. My favorite, I think one of the questions that you had on our list was what is your favorite part of our position? What is your favorite part of our job? My favorite item so far, and I can still mark it in the book as like the favorite task I've done, is going down on-site filming and going to large row crops in Mississippi and actually working with the farmers and working with the applicators who are doing research on these fields and doing on-site education. That is
Wow.
The way that you build this for the younger crowd, crowd of people is you go, what are we actually doing here? Let's get this thing on site. Let's go, you know what, we've got a significant infestation in this building. Let's do this thing. And Stephen Van Tassel is another excellent on-site filmer where we go, you know what, we've got a heck of a building here. You know, it's not huge, but if you can see behind me, are right on the edge of a wetland.
Okay.
I'll open my thing. Maybe it might blow out. I don't know. But behind me is a wetland, and so we do have considerations for what products we can use, and how do we make that cool, and how do we make it real, and how do you make it something that a young person who's 17 years old that's looking at college and going, man, I'm not 100% what I want to do here, but I really know that I like bugs. I like working with bugs, or I love snakes and reptiles, or I love rodents. I like to work with them, or I like the idea of having that be part of my career. What kind of careers are available to me? Well, control and application absolutely is available to them. And we're bridging that gap. That definitely is where we are building it so that anyone who's in the aging generations can use it and use it wonderfully, but that it's interesting to the younger generation. And it's a constant fight. It is always evolving.
Yeah, no, and especially with the attention spans getting shorter, that's been, we've experimented with videos where it all depends on what we put out. We could have a 1-hour video, and then we can have a 1-minute video, and looking at, how dynamic that was and who was actually the demographics of who actually watches it, So it's a very tough thing that you guys are doing. I mean, it really is this is why so few people do it. I said, I've been trying to do it. I've been involved with training and education for a long time. All the pieces, the 1,037 pieces that have to come together to do what you guys do, from the compliance side, what Sarah does, to the marketing side, to the getting people interested in what the heck you're doing, which is very tough because they're very standoffish to do it. It's very, very tough. I mean, it's what you guys have been able to pull off is really, really amazing in this sphere that we don't consider this exciting, because nobody's really like, oh, this is so exciting. I'm excited about it. I can see you're excited about it. You're passionate about it. But most other people just aren't. I mean, I'm talking to, entomologists and saying, guys, put your conferences on video, record them and put them on. Yeah, but, I'm afraid of being in front of a camera. And I'm like, dude, you're in front of an audience. What are you talking about? Just put the dang content out there, because there's a lot of good material that should be out there that isn't necessarily part of a course that you have to take, but it's really cool stuff. And nobody's really I've been having conversations with Steven about, listen, you need to put more videos out. You need to he writes books. He's a prolific writer. I mean, the guy writes. Oh, yeah. I mean, but I said, bring it to life, Steven. Put it on a video form where that audience who enjoys a video, who's never going to read a book because they're not a reader, his material is extensive material. It's, that stuff that I read. But I said, put it out on video, dude. Put it out on audio. He's on the podcast. Let's kick this up a notch, to that you can get it out there. So I'm encouraged by what you're doing. I hope that other people that are manufacturers, reps right now that aren't doing this stuff in their context would get more excited about doing it, because it is possible, but it is a lot of work. I mean, it isn't to downplay it and say, oh, this is easy because we got a camera and webcam. And no, I mean, it's a lot of freaking hours of work I put into, it's about my class. It's usually 1 30-minute class, could be anywhere between 8 to 24 hours worth of work.
Oh, yes. Thousands of hours in creating this. And I agree
for a 30-minute class.
Yes. The producers of, and what we call it after the stakeholder group, and getting them involved in production of these training programs is definitely on Sarah's radar, and something that she does a really good job of reaching out.
Yeah. Tell me what it takes for you to act when you're having a conversation. Take me through that process, because I think this will be eye-opening for a lot of people who don't understand how difficult it is to work with government, to work with educators, and then work with trying to market a good product. What's your process like on a daily basis to how long does it usually take to get, when you start this conversation with maybe a college, to actually getting something produced? I mean, how does that work?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Well, it's been kind of a challenge on a lot of fronts. And where we've had the most success is we don't call the college, you don't call the dean, you call a person.
Okay.
Identify one person who says, I think I might like to learn more about that. There's Jolene Hendricks, who was formerly a colleague of Stephen Van Tassel's. I ran into her at an APSI meeting and I said, hey, how would you feel about maybe putting some of this training online? Montana, they go through some of these, they have long winters in Montana. You in Florida, you probably don't know what a long winter looks like, but we had in the north have snow from anywhere from November to April. It was snowing this morning.
Wow.
Here in Star City.
Yep.
And that can cut into a lot of available training time. So I looked at Jolene and said, hey, what do you think about putting some of your training on online? And she said, I think that would really work, because we have people who have to drive for a whole day to get to where the training is, and then spend 3 days or 4 days or 5 days in a hotel, depending on how many trainings they're going to have, and then take a whole day and drive back. Whereas if they could do it online, then it would save them hundreds of dollars and days of time.
Yeah.
So once the person is interested in doing the training, really it's a fairly painless process for that person after that. They'll come to our studio. We exchange email and lots of conversation ahead of time, get a PowerPoint from them that looks good and that will not be one of those 12-point font paragraphs on the screen. Make sure that the PowerPoint looks nice. Then they come and they just talk. They give their talk about the training that they've put together in front of the camera. And it is a little different when you're in front of a room versus when you're in the camera. That little red light goes on, and sometimes all the words in my brain just fly right out. And I have to take a minute and say, okay, do over. But that's the nice thing about video, is that you get do-overs. If you stumble over a word, you didn't just fall on your face in front of 50 people. You just go back to the beginning of the sentence. And we have a fantastic editing team who takes that very, very raw footage of yours truly and splices it together. And I actually come out looking like I know what I'm talking about. It's fantastic.
The pre-work, she's underplaying the amount of pre-work that she puts in, which is a lot.
Yes, that's what I wanted to get, because I mean, when you start a conversation with anybody of this nature, you get a lot of no's.
You get a lot of no's.
You get a lot of, I don't know about that. But it's, nobody says yes the first time.
Right.
If I were to say, hey, Franklin, how would you like to take and put one of your videos online?
I'm down. I'm like one of those guys that I leap first and then I ask, what did I just jump off of? But that's just me. That's just my entrepreneurial nature. But I know from dealing with a lot of educators and government people, it's just, they're very, very reserved, conservative, very, everything is, they're not very progressive in this mentality of where things are going. They want to conserve it where it is. And then there's also the issue of they're concerned about what they can say and the legalities and all of these issues that I've had these conversations. What if I, say the wrong thing? Then they got to get releases from their universities. And it's, the documentation process of them having to go through this how long does it usually take from the time that you have this conversation with them, that you initiate, to the time they actually get the video produced and get it out the door?
Anywhere from 3 months to a year.
3 months to a year,
or longer. But it all depends on it. It all depends on that individual, really.
Yeah.
You are an eager person. You'll jump in and figure it out as you go. But that's also why we have started talking more to the individual instead of to the university. Because if I approach this individual and say, hey, what do you think about doing this outside of your official position? That content, that intellectual property is that individual's intellectual property. And so they can come and give a talk on it outside of their university credentials or industry credentials, and that's their deal.
Got it.
And so we've tried to eliminate as much of the concern and the red tape, and it's just come to Traverse City, talk about what you know in front of a camera, and we take it from there. They don't have to worry about doing the editing. They don't have to worry about putting it together into this polished package that the applicator sees. They don't have to worry about taking it to the state lead agency and getting it approved. That's all stuff that I handle, that we handle as the company.
And that's beautiful, because a lot of people don't want, that's where they fall short. They know their material, but they don't have a platform that they have to create. Like, I got to create my own platform. Nobody's doing this for me. So you've created the platform, and you allow them an outlet to be a creator.
Correct. Why reinvent the wheel? We've already got the system in place. We have the database. We have the platform, the learning platform. I have a relationship where if I call any one of these 27 states, they know who I am and will answer questions. And I'm constantly reaching out to new states to try to fill in these holes where we're not in just yet. So I take on most of, I think, what tends to give people some hesitation into taking their material to an online format. I take all of the work. All you have to do is come and present your information.
That's beautiful.
And it gets out there.
You're more of a salesman than you know, because you have to do a lot of selling in a different way to get this to happen. And you're kind of like a CIA recruiter. If you join us, and you have to sweet talk them into this idea. But I get it. I mean, there is a lot of selling on your part that has to happen for you to make this, make it. And you're in between dealing with the states and managing those relationships, which is hard, and it takes a certain class. I could not do that. I have CEU approved material in my state, and the process is pretty easy. It's not too difficult in Florida. But managing those relationships, it takes a certain type of a person that can deal. I have a very difficult time with bureaucracy, as an entrepreneur, and I'm very impatient with people and processes. Do you guys have like a course that you do for these people to help them, like TED Talks does, where they prep people for actual presenting the material, how to properly do it and set up and all that?
Yes.
Oh, I was like, that's a really good thing. We should do that.
we call it the initial presenter package. And so what we do is we set them up with, an example program, and we lay out exactly how it's going to work. And then we provide them access to lots of different formats of training that we've done. Okay. And we set you up with an online profile, and it's not just one course, because we really don't like to do that cookie cutter. This is what it's going to be. This is how it's going to work. You need to come in and do this. Instead, we go, take a look at these 5 presenters. Take a look at these 3 presenters. All 3 have very different styles. The filming production was different also on them. What is going to meet your needs? For Stephen Van Tassel, you're right. He's a prolific writer. He is an excellent presenter, and he's very, very charismatic. And the way that he presents training is by far and away different than how maybe Gene Merkel from Mississippi State University, who comes from a background of being a Methodist minister, different presentation style altogether. And so the pre-work where Sarah works with them, and for that 3 months that she talks about, it just goes by like nothing. It's a lot of work. But they send in, how do they do it in a classroom? First thing we want to cover is, how do you teach this in a classroom, and what materials are you using? And we look at those and we go, how do we translate that into online? They'll send us a PowerPoint that they've been using in a classroom, or maybe it's not a PowerPoint, whatever presentation material they've been using. Sarah will look at that material. Behind Sarah, or not behind, but we have a production staff that's not part of necessarily the administration of Pesticide, but from an online education production in general. We have 3 full-time staff members who are just in production of materials and production of education that's outside of the film crew. And they look at those materials, and Sarah looks at those materials and goes, all right, let's, for that 3 months, or, I mean, some folks are ready to go right now, and they're like, you know what, I can be there in a month. Can you be ready for me? Okay, that puts a little bit more on us. We can do it, definitely. Right. The answer is always yes, because you and I are very similar, very impatient and ready to move. And so
the longest part of this is, how long does it take that presenter to put their material together?
Exactly.
That's the first step. Once that material is put together, it all happens very, very fast. And it's a time of, okay, your material's put together. How soon can you get on a plane? Okay, when can you be here? And then from there, it's probably a week to 2 weeks before we have everything edited, depending on our backlog of editing. But we can have it together and ready to send out inside of 2 weeks' time after it's been done filming. So the first hurdle, which I think is where most people get tripped up, is putting together material to be presented. Well, a lot of times for these educators, they already have the material put together.
Right.
So that first hurdle, what's perceived as that first hurdle, really isn't a hurdle. It's just getting their information to me and then saying, okay, here we go. Let's look at this topic and that topic and this topic, and when can you come? That's the first.
And if they have enough material, we do have the studio, all the equipment that we have is mobile available. So like when we go down to a university, or let's say a university does want to get on board and they say, we've got, you know what? We've got 5, 6 instructors here, and we've got a series of courses that we want to produce over a week period. Can you come to us? Yes, absolutely. If you're you know, got a lot of material to produce, you've got, you know, the cost benefit is there on us. We'll take that risk. We'll take on that expense. This one thing to cover, this never costs a subject matter anything, but sweat equity, I call it. The actual, you know, the work involved in getting your presentation correct. We try and take on every other risk, every other item. We do this generally on spec. And in a lot of cases, even now, if it doesn't look like this is going to be an immediate pickup where there's a big return, big financial return for training, we do pay up front. We'll take that risk on, and we'll say, you know what, we'll compensate you up front. And mitigate that risk and get your materials out there and get something created. We're a pretty unique company from that standpoint, in that we are proactive in producing and doing new things. And when we invest in 5 or 6 different products or 5 or 6 different programs, and then, you know, one or two of them hit hard, or 2 of them become very successful, that's a wonderful thing. Right. And we have to take a look at the feasibility of that and go, yeah. And Sarah does an excellent job of working with instructors to say, what is feasible? What works on your end for getting this thing produced in a relatively quick timeline, and something that is really high quality, that from that point forward, you can go, hey, you want to see how I teach a class? Here, let me send you a link. This is a class that's out there. And that is a very, very cool thing as well.
Yeah, so let me ask you, Sarah, because you're doing most of this communication between educators and all that. Like, reaching out to these guys, like I would like to see like a course by Bobby Corrigan. I would pay money, because I can never go travel. It cost me $2,000 to travel to see this guy anywhere he's at. Even he was here in Florida, I could not take the time off because it was going to cost me $1,000 to go for just 2 days to take his 2-day course, the Rodent Academy. I mean, I would pay big money, like $300 easy for an online course to see Bobby Corrigan. How tough is it to make that sale with a lot of these high-end people like Deanie Miller, for instance? I would, on bed bugs, I'd pay for that in a heartbeat to get that high level training or not necessarily compliance training, but the value of those 30 to 40 years of experience of doing one darn thing. How hard is it to get those? And are you looking at that? Is that something you guys have done with anybody?
Well, we are still relatively new to this whole industry. 4 years, really, we've been doing this. You just said we have people out there who've been doing this for 30 or 40 years. So we don't have any we don't have any big names like you just described. But I am always reaching out to professionals. I'm always reaching out to different individuals, people that I meet through these APSI meetings. Jolene Hendricks is at Montana State of Montana. Stephen Van Tassel, Jean Merkel. I'm working with a forest educator out in Pennsylvania, trying to bring her on as a new educator. I would love to have a conversation with you about putting some training material, taking that material together. It's always building. We're always looking for new instructors. We would love the opportunity to talk to some of these people. And until we have an opportunity to talk to them and say, hey, what do you think about this? Then the answer's never no.
Yeah,
Just
because I'm gonna put out the word about this to these guys, and I'm gonna put them on the spot, because I do that. I put people on the spot. I said, you haven't come on my show, you loser, and then I'm getting a call next week. Hey, can I be on your show? And that's like, because most people, truly nobody's listening to this. Okay, guys, it's just you and us here. Nobody's really watching this, but I'm really excited about where this could go, and 4 years, what you've accomplished is big. That's a lot to do what you guys are doing. But yes, I would like to see a lot of what goes on in these conferences. I was ready to go to the podcasters conference in Orlando. I could not go. I had already pre-made plans with my daughter to take her to go to Cape Canaveral on a field trip. And so I said, what do I have to do to get the videos? I'll pay full price of admission. I don't care. I would. And I did. So what I did is they contacted me and says, listen, if you'll pay for the full price of admission for next year, we're going to give you this year's videos of the full conference. Stuff like that is, to me, invaluable, because I can listen to that conference, and if I want the networking and all that, I can always network. I do. But I'm a Gen Xer. I'm 50 years old. I know I don't look it. I look darn good. But but I'm 50, and I'm a Gen Xer who grew up in technology and IT. And I think like a millennial, but I can embrace an iGener and understand how they're seeing things, because I have empathy and understanding how I can relate to these people to get what I need to them to know in the way that they want to receive it, not necessarily in the way that I would prefer to give it. So to me, getting even conferences, not just necessarily CEU courses, we're having, even with which I've openly criticized and talked to them about it and goaded them, and with the National Pest Management Association, the conferences. In this day and age, we can't get these conferences online. They're so behind, and but I was able to get the podcasters conferences. It's coming out in a month, and I'll have 200 conferences that were given on my desktop that I can watch. These are things that I'm talking about, that I'm goading people about, that I'm pushing for it. And people are like, well, aren't you going to get competition? I said, I love competition. The reason you guys are here is I'm putting up my own courses and I'm doing my own thing. But I'm more excited about what you're doing than what I'm doing, because I can see you're further ahead and you can do so much good with it that it doesn't bother me at all to have you on and say, because most people are like, well, why did you have on a company that does training when you're doing training? Guys don't get it, how I'm wired, that it does not bother me in one bit. I'm more excited about what you guys are doing, because I'm in an infancy stage, and this is great for everybody. And this is great for what you guys are doing, but it's great for the industry. It's great for that poor guy who works for a solo operator who he's never going to send him into a conference.
Right.
And that's where my compassion for people and my empathy that I have for understanding where I was 13 years ago when there was no training available and nobody would train me. And I had to train myself. And that's what I'm looking at is, getting these guys who have all this brilliant knowledge in their head, and it's staying at the conferences and only to the people that can afford to go there, understanding that there's 174,000 pest control operators, but the National Pest Management Association in Florida, out of 17,000 technicians that are in Florida, they can only get 3,000 into a conference.
Yes, well, that's part of the battle that we face is because this is generally mandated at the state level.
Right.
And so many of those educators absolutely feel, and even they feel that the world kind of ends at their state. And yeah. Sarah's one of the big things that Sarah's able to push and that we push is that if you are a subject matter expert who lives and breathes what you do translates from Florida to Mississippi. And some of that will translate to Tennessee. And some of that will depending on the actual subject matter you're teaching,
right.
The world doesn't end at your state line. Right. And that is a huge hurdle that we overcome and that our systems overcome, is that we have to broaden the audience. We're broadening the audience and making sure, yes, the material, it fits your needs. It fits what you're doing. You don't want to be, something that's regional, that's not even close to your region. You don't want to learn about something that's going on in Florida if you're in Alaska. Right. But at the same time, if there's folks in North Dakota and South Dakota, Montana, who are dealing with some significant issues, and that same audience would hugely benefit from the information in maybe another northern area, Washington, Alaska, Oregon. Those states, the information needs to be produced. And what it is production. Filming a conference, a live conference with 100 people in the room, microphones, you know this because you have one in front of you. This is the only thing anyone can hear. So filming a live conference with someone up on a pedestal talking, it comes off oftentimes, not always, sometimes it's amazing, but a lot of the time it's less than engaging content. And so you have to take the information that you're covered in that conference and make it into a more engaging production. And it's just one extra step. Generally, the material is right on the money and the presenter is right on the money. But how do you create a content format and production? I mean, it takes investment. There's no doubt about it. And that is a big thing that conferences struggle with, is that along with doing what you're doing in a classroom, you also need to have producers that are there. And I've seen Sarah put on her producer hat and at a conference and go, hold on, microphones need to be like this, cameras need to be like this. And the audience, while questions are hugely important, it needs to be organized. Because if it's not organized, we're in a Zoom meeting now, but all Zoom meetings are not created equal.
Right.
And if the organization factor is not there, what you end up doing is spending a ton of money in production for a product and it can end up being subpar.
Right.
And then you can't sell a subpar product. And so you gotta come at it from that full production value point of view. Yes. I hope it's not off key. There's one, the ass word anyway. Ron Swanson says we don't half-ass two things or three things. We whole-ass one thing.
Yes, yeah, no, and I can appreciate that and understand, because I did for the longest time. I've done live sound and I've done concert productions. I've been involved in media and that
absolutely
kind of thing. And it's very, very difficult to get the sound that the musician wants and the sound that the audience would want, and getting everybody coordinated. And yes, that is a huge undertaking. But what they're going to learn in the next, what I've been telling them about, is in the next 6 months, when you have no conferences going on, that you build in that infrastructure. Now they'll start investing in that infrastructure because they realize what's going to happen the next time we can't do a conference. And I think that that's where I look at it and I say, I'm looking at it into the future and say, how am I going to engage the next generation? I can't go back and try to motivate these guys who are 60, 70 years old. When I go to conference and I teach and I do training classes, it's the young people taking the notes. It's the young people looking at the excitement. I'm looking at one of my guys that just inspired me from the beginning that I started my career. And one of the things he started talking about the future of pest control, and I was brand new. And he had me at that future of pest control where he told me 10 years down the road, this is what's going to happen. This is a guy who was one of the first graduates in Purdue University of their entomology department.
Wow.
Okay, that goes back.
Wow.
So when he starts 50 years of having this experience and he starts talking about the future, and I'm a new guy sitting in a room and all these old guys are shaking their head going no, because they're not interested anymore. They're done. Put a fork in them. They're just waiting. They're going to retire and their B&G is going to be put on a mantle somewhere. I'm looking at what am I going to do for my company in the next 10 years? And this is the guy I'm listening to. And I did. And I basically prepared my company from being a lawn and ornamental company, Sarah, which is what I spent 95% of my time, which I learned everything from lawn and ornamental that I decided, I said, I'm not going to listen to a lot of these guys. I'm going to go to agriculture and see what agriculture is doing and learn from agriculture to do lawn and ornamental correctly.
Wow.
That's how I did it. I reversed engineered it. And to the point that we have an eco-friendly company today based on that one word that I got 10 years ago. So I'm looking at the next generation going, how am I going to engage the next generation of kids who are not getting a job until they're 25, not at 18? And how am I going to bring them into a field that I can't have a 50-year-old guy doing pest control because he can't crawl, he can't do this, but I'm not engaging these people. I have to be able to engage that next generation now and start marketing to them now so that when they do enter the workforce, this is there. And this is what the associations don't get. This is what the CPCO doesn't get. This is what a lot of these people don't get, is that they're stuck. But you guys are more progressive, understanding that this is where it's going, and understand that you're staying ahead of this and saying in 10 years, we will be that dominant company that does the dominant training and that does have multiple channels of training, not just certifiable training or verifiable training. I'm creating a curriculum now where I want to introduce this introduction to pest control and introduction to IPM into the public schools as part of shop and things like that, because I understand that I need to engage this audience now in middle school, not in high school, not when they graduated, not when they're deciding what they're going to study in the next 10 years. But I have to do it now because we're having a difficult time finding, and in plumbing and in construction and in landscaping, every one of these construction, everybody's having that there are no young people that want to work who are the young people that need to do this work and learn, because it takes time to develop them, and so I mean, it's just even things that you say, like things that don't go across. Like when I was talking about emerald ash borer.
Well, that's a big thing where we are. That's a very big subject.
It started up where you guys were at, and I've been talking about it. It says, guys, it's going to come south. It's going to come south. It's right now in Florida already, and I've been talking about it for years. And like people are like, how am I going to treat trees with emerald ash borers? I says, dang, we've known about it, but that's the thing, that a lot of training doesn't need to be certifiable. It needs to be information that people need. And training people need, that doesn't necessarily transmit to a CEU.
Well, since you need so many CEUs anyway,
yeah,
it helps if it does.
It helps, yeah.
That's the tightrope that I walk, is I try to find those people who can give us the training on the relevant information, on what's current or coming, and still get it approved for CEU. Because at the end of the day, unless you're really, really passionate about finding more in your industry, which you are, Franklin, that the average applicator is not. They want to do the minimum. They want to do their 4 hours or their 10 hours. In Michigan, it's 8 per category. In Florida, I know it's 4 core and then a variable number of CEUs. If you've got an aquatic, you have 20 hours of education that you have to do. And they're not interested in doing more than they really have to. So that's the tightrope that I walk, finding those people who are passionate about it and getting that information into a CEU approved format so that you can get access to that new and exciting and upcoming information and still get the credit that you still have to do.
Yeah,
so
that's exactly the
that's
value
my
add.
tightrope right there.
okay. No, I mean, I agree that that's one of the things that I'm looking at this and saying, I'm thinking like 100 miles an hour all the time. Like my brain does not shut off. It doesn't slow down. It's like, where are we going? And a lot of, goading people into this action, because I know that I can't, I'm more comfortable in this situation and giving you the information, getting it out there and getting people excited about what's coming, and getting the next generation excited than I am about necessarily running a school.
Right.
That's not my major thing. I mean,
which is why we would work well together, because you can get out there.
She's pitching me hard, man. I mean, she's already dropped it. Like she's pitching me 3 times, and she's a darn good salesperson.
We have to.
I know.
Your passion bleeds through. You can hear it in your voice, and that's why if you are presenting to middle school and high school, that is what they're feeding on during your presentation, is the passion. I can see it in as you talk, and that's what we need to bring into online education. Is passion, is charismatic speaking, is making it cool, that it's cool to live this stuff, man.
Oh, it is, absolutely.
Like, it's cool to live it. You're not being, back in the day in the 70s, whatever, a nerd might have had a certain connotation, or geek might have had a certain connotation. Today, that is a cool thing. When you are the subject matter expert on a certain item, whatever it is, for us, yes, online education, we nerd out on that stuff, man. Like we geek out on online training. And we have to find and work with subject matter experts who geek out, who nerd out on the topic that they live and breathe. And when you have those people teaching, those people make a difference.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
what makes a difference.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we're at the we're getting into that cutting edge. You are so far advanced because you've got the technology. Did you create your own learning platform, by the way, or did you use an existing learning platform?
No, that's what I mentioned, is that we build all of the software. We looked at Moodle, we've looked at every one of, and we constantly have access to other learning management systems, LMSs. But yes, we are on our 4th iteration of building our own complete learning management systems. And we actually won Training Software Product of the Year in 2016 for the entire electrical industry.
Wow.
Based on the software production that we do. That is, when we went in front of the universities, when we went in front of state lead agencies initially, just starting in years ago, that was a huge buy-in factor, was that, yes, we're looking at this from a delivery standpoint and creating software and, employing the people here in-house, so that if we have, if the same question gets asked 3 times, how do I do this? That means there's got to be a software change. And that change can't take 6 months to implement. That change needs to be like, hey, Jason and Yvonne, guys, we got a problem. How long is it going to take to get this thing up? This is my vision. I'm going to draw it out on a piece of paper. Here's the path. And here's the path that Sarah creates. Here's the path. What do you guys see? Clickety, clickety, click. And, they spend some time really creating that UX. And then within a week, we're able to, change the path for the user in a way that negates that need for a question. Because if someone's asking questions, then they're not focusing on content. If they're asking questions about the system. And so that's why we do, all of our entire platform. And we're actually about a month away from launching a new version of our platform too, which is cool. Not that it matters. I hate to talk about what's coming next.
No, that's cool, man. That's totally cool.
What now that matters. But no, we are never okay with just sitting on an out-of-the-box platform that doesn't meet the needs of a workforce-oriented individual who needs to take training to meet their, their requirement, and leave it there. We needed to work with the state lead agency. We needed to work with the student. We needed to work with the university. And so all of the cool tools, we have to build it because there's not enough of a customer base yet for a massive company like Blackboard or Canvas or any of those to really create an excellent product. And so we took that on.
Yeah, we're learning that because I'm helping my buddy build his online school where he's putting on he teaches English as a second language, and he's done,
definitely.
Yeah, so he's done ESL for 30 years, but he's got a really unique method that he's developed. And I've been telling him we need to do it. So I finally just said, I'm going to build the site for you, and I'm going to buy the LMS, and I'm going to build it for you because you're not going to do it, you lazy bum. And I just started building them and forced them to create the content. So we're having that huge learning curve of an LMS that sounds like it's so simple to use to get started. It's not. It's freaking a lot of hard work. I mean, he's put in at least 20 to 30 hours just learning how to set up the LMS.
Oh my.
Yeah. And we're using one of the bigger ones that supposedly is, supposed to. We found nothing is easy. Everything is like, it's easy once you learn how to do it. But so he's building that online academy, and then I'm using mine to build a couple of the courses that I want to do for this project because I'm thinking of my classroom as a long-term. I'm to the point where I'm almost going to give this thing away. I'm not even going to charge for it because I want to introduce. I mean, my goal is in the next 10 years to make everyone understand what IPM is, because from IPM is a term that we use in-house between educators and government, and the customer has no idea what the heck IPM is. So my goal is to make IPM popular. I mean, that's my mission in life, right? I mean, I'm going to dive.
We have multiple productions on integrated pest management. It is absolutely in every single program that we teach, almost every single one, there is an IPM section to that, or at least in each lesson. How do you look at this from an IPM standpoint? And Sarah really does an excellent job making sure that each lesson has that built in.
Yeah. No, so I really do applaud you guys for what you've done. It's amazing. Again, man, what is the name of the company?
Certified Training Institute.
Certified Training Institute. Is that certifiedtraininginstitute.com?
Yes, okay. It is. It's a little long. There's also onlinecti.com, certifiedtraininginstitute.com, and you just click on Pesticide, and it's entire built out. It's it's a heck of a fun thing to build.
Okay, no, cool. And then so if anybody, do you have a phone number, or you prefer them to go to the website?
No, we definitely have a phone number. Sarah, we didn't even touch on this item.
Okay,
is that with 27 states, we'll make it quick, but with 27 states
I'm good.
currently being served, and the goal is all 50. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was gonna say I mean, you guys are slacking here. You only got 27.
Right. And but every single one of those for your applicator, it's a puzzle. For Michigan here, you have 8 hours of core and 8 hours on each of your categories that you fill. And so each state and every applicator, every time they renew their certification and their license, they're looking at a puzzle. And so we have to have a full staff of what we call licensing experts. We used to be so small. 10 years ago, we only had 8 or 9 staff members, but these days we have to employ a lot more. And it's a great thing. But when you call in, our phone number is 1-800-727-7104. And you're going to get the option to speak with a licensing expert, someone who just lives and breathes solving that puzzle. That's what they do every day, is solve your certification puzzle. And they go, okay, what are your categories? You got these 3 categories. What states are you licensed in? Because multiple applicators are licensed in. If you're on a state line, if you're on Kentucky and Tennessee, or you're on Florida and Georgia,
right.
You're going to want training that meets both needs. You can't take training twice. So Sarah works with those licensing experts on a very regular basis. She'll hold a training. If we're entering a new state or we've got new products that are being launched, she's going to work with those licensing experts who are also in-house, and they sit down and have a training on what does the applicator need and how do we fulfill that need and get them everything that's relevant to them and fulfill their licensing need. And so that is another huge, huge part of this, is that I'm sure individuals like yourself you solve that puzzle yourself. You'll go online, you'll look at what's out there, you'll look at the categories and what it fulfills, and you probably don't mind pulling training from this source for a couple hours, that source for a couple hours, this source. But for a company with 25 people who are working for them and a whole bunch of different categories, that's a full-time position for somebody in the HR, the office manager, to sort all of those categories and make sure they have training for all of that. And our school does that. When someone says, this is my license and these are my 5 categories,
that's amazing.
3 or 8, we go, okay, we got to get you exactly what you need and make sure that it's all fulfilling. And generally, we try and create a full package. That is when you see synergy across multi-groups, and you see synergy business to business, and you see applicators get what they need. And literally, we should forward these things on. We get it very, very regularly, but we just had another student in Arizona yesterday call back in. Of course, they say, thank you very, very much for solving this puzzle for me, but also I can't believe the content you've created. I learned so much because I was able to do it on my phone. I was able to do it when I want, and I could learn at my own pace. And this was right on with what I needed to know. And Sarah gets those calls from students, from early learners that are studying for their exam. But we also get that same thing. Sarah, who was it just yesterday or 2 days ago that got a hold of you? I think it was for Pest.
I forget their name, but somebody who'd been in the industry for nearly 20 years. And they said, I learned more in this 12 hours of education than I have in the last 20 years of doing.
And that is not uncommon, because in a lot of states, they're just, think about it. If you're in a place sometimes like Montana, you know how far you have to go to get a training? Because there's more people in my county, I think, that there is in the entire state.
Right.
It's a lot of guys have to take it every 4 years, every 2 years. Some states it's not every year, like Florida. So it is hard. This is one of the things that I talk about, that it's hard for a lot of people to get quality training. And if you're working right now and you're hustling during the summer or whatever, you don't have downtime. You can do it at night. You can't go to a conference in the middle of the day. It's getting tougher. We're so busy here in Miami. Anybody tells me to drive an hour, I'm telling them, dude, there better be a good reason why I'm driving an hour, because it takes me an hour to go 18 miles. It's so congested. So, the opportunities for this, the amount of growth that can happen in this is just uncalculable. How much?
It is scalable. Yes, it is scalable.
Yeah, it's sobering, mind-numbing, and humbling at the same time when you think about I sit down and look at numbers sometimes, and I'm thinking, if I can get 1% of my specialty courses that I want to do, because I do a lot of specialty stuff that I want to get into, organic plant care and things that guys are into, which we're into, and one of the things that we've been able to do is really good organic ornamental pest control, which most people don't know how to do, and things like that. And I sit down and I say, there's 774,000 technicians somewhere in the field. And, 1% is not, everybody wants to get a 10% market share, that's pie in the sky. I'm thinking humbly 1%. It's good that we can get those people that are passionate about that stuff, being highly niched and all that. That's where I'm going. I'm going to that highly niched area, not the general CEU market. That's not my goal, but it's mind-numbing to see how much growth we can have in this. And how many people do you have in your company, by the way? That's okay. You can throw out the number.
In the office, not today, obviously, because we're all working from home, but there's, I believe, 23 or 24 staff members.
That's amazing.
Full-time. And then, the subject matter experts, the list is crazy. And they're all over. But in general, that's about
sweet.
the size of our company. So
that's sweet, man. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. This has been amazing. And I've had a blast doing this with you guys. So thank you so much for taking the time being on. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a challenge.
Okay.
To your marketing team. All right. Okay. They got to come up with the headline for this podcast.
Ooh.
All right. So you guys get to choose the SEO for this and the headline, how we're going to market this webinar podcast. So there you go, man.
I think they can do it. They're up to that challenge.
Yeah,
so that's ready to hook.
That'll be fun.
Okay.
All right, man.
All
I
right.
appreciate you guys for being on. Thank you so much. I hope I didn't take too much of your time because I can talk for 3 hours, 4 hours about pest control.
We did 2 hours, no problem. But
all right,
Frank, thank you very much for having us on. Sarah, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Franklin, thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Look forward to talking to you guys soon.
I will see you next time.
Yeah, we will.
Next time.
All right, dude.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Bye, guys.
Take care.